Hello, everyone, and welcome to this HR Leadership Insights panel discussion on prioritizing humanization. What an important topic to discuss with so much going on in today's workplace that I'll let our experts talk more about. But really, the power of this concept is that everyone wins, right? The people, the bottom line, the organization, when we really get this right. So, incredibly important topic for today, and I'm honored to moderate. Before we begin, I'd love to just take a moment to thank Dextego for providing the platform for our conversation today. Their mission is certainly very aligned with our topic to empower individuals and organizations to develop interpersonal or soft skills like communication and collaboration and leadership. And they do this using the power of AI in real time. So you can learn more about them and their offerings at their website, dextego.com. There's a QR code up at the top left of your screen as well, or any of their social media platforms. And you can certainly reach out to them with any questions. So with that, let's do some introductions. I'll be your moderator today. My name is Ashley Freeman. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I am an executive coach. I have my own company, which I named Flourishing Work. How pertinent for today. I'm also author of a Amazon International best-selling book, The Path to Your Career Purpose. And I am a master practitioner of Myers-Briggs. So in my work as a coach, I focus on all things leadership, interpersonal skills, and that one-on-one guidance for the leaders that I work with. Well, I'll just go in order here, and I will invite Amber to introduce herself next.
Thanks, Ashley. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Amber Caraballo. I'm the Vice President of People for Miles Ahead Brands. We are a parent brand organization that has a growing portfolio of leading logistics, technology, and materials businesses across the Southeast and the Southwest. In my role, I sit on the leadership team and oversee the people, admin, and DOT compliance areas of the business and really drive culture, engagement, talent acquisition, anything that touches that life cycle of the employee. And I've had the opportunity to work about 15 years in human resources and throughout many industries. So everything from sports, I worked in baseball for a few years. I did forensic civil engineering. I did digital marketing, also insurance, technology, and now here with logistics. So no surprise that people drive each business, no matter what industry they are in. And really excited to talk to the team in this group today about, humanizing work and really driving culture in organizations. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber. Amy, you're next.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'm really happy to be here and excited to have this conversation today. So I'm Amy Ross, and I'm the CEO and founder of Humankind HR. And this conversation today is really at the core of our business and what we do every day working with our clients. We provide executive recruiting, outsource recruiting, and HR consulting services where we help businesses develop, build, and grow sustainable, purpose-driven organizations that are really focused on people and focused on the team and building leadership. And I'm looking forward to the discussion today and happy to be here. Thank you.
Glad you're here. Thank you, Amy. And Danielle, you're up next.
I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. Well, I'm very excited to be here, especially with this group. There's a lot of experience that I think everybody can find value from. So I work for Gallagher. We are a global insurance brokerage. So I am specifically in the employee benefits area. And I've been there for a little over a year now. But before that, I was an HR professional and leader for 18 years. And so I have been engulfed in culture and humanizing the workplace, and it's ever changing. And I'm excited to kind of be at the forefront here with you ladies and, talking about that today.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, Pamela.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Pamela Castellana. I'm based in Tampa, Florida. I'm the Senior Director of People and Culture at Next Tech. So my team and I, we cover the whole employee life cycle, kind of like Amber was saying before. So my team is involved in the TA, the hiring side of things, all the way through the entire employee life cycle. And all that happens in there within engagement, growth, development, things like that, coaching our people leaders to help our teams become successful. The organization I'm with today is Next Tech. I've been here almost 4 years, and we are a healthcare IT organization, a SaaS company that builds software for medical providers across various specialties. And so excited to be here today. I love the topic of talking about people and how HR teams can help companies succeed through its people. So excited to be here.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for that helpful context so that we can understand the awesome work that you're doing in your organizations. Before we dive into our first question here, I'd love to invite everyone watching in the audience to feel free to submit your questions, and we'll do our best to answer those. So to kick off our discussion, I always like to level set on what it is we're talking about here. So let me start with Amy and Pamela, and maybe we can just go in that order for your responses. So of course, anyone feel free to jump in. We'll keep today's discussion somewhat casual. So Amy and then Pamela, two-part question here. How would you define humanizing work, and why is it important in today's corporate environment?
Great question. So how I would define humanizing work is really understanding the individuals that you work with, understanding your team, understanding the people around you, and being able to meet people where they're at. Everyone comes to work at a different experience level, a different stage, with different views, different backgrounds, but really truly understanding people, understanding where they're at, and then being able to help support them, give them tools, and give them everything that they need so that they can be their best selves, they can be successful, they can learn, they can reach goals, and they can, be just an amazing contributor. And so I think that's a lot of what defining humanizing work is it's really understanding people and understanding how you can help them and meeting them where they're at, and then giving them the support and tools and resources they need to really be successful. And I think that's important, especially in today's kind of environment where there's a lot of change going on from every aspect, from political to social to technology, and really being able to support and help your team, I think is why it's important, and even more so today.
Absolutely. And just a quick note before we continue that for those watching, we do have a dynamic QR code happening. So as different speakers are presenting and answering questions, the QR code representing the organization will actually change. So make sure to check that out. And so let's see, Pamela, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. So totally agree with you, Amy. And listening to our employees, both our individual contributors and our leaders, and finding that balance between what our individual contributors need, what our people leaders need, and what the company needs, right? I think the very, very old school way of leading people had to do with what does the company want? What does the company need? Drive everything forward for the company. But that's just not realistic. It's not where we are in the world today. So listening to what our employees need and finding balance between the company's needs and goals and the people's needs and goals is really, really critical. Listening to those voices, finding what we can do to move forward together, and have a lot of transparency in the balance of those goals and needs is another key part of it, right? And that helps employees make that connectivity between what they're doing as an individual at work and how that ties in with what the company is doing. So I think that's a great way of humanizing the workplace, helping individuals make connections with what the company is doing and finding that balance between what the company needs and what the people need.
Absolutely. And that balance, also I think applies to the work-life balance that we hear so much about. And it's just absolutely so critical for the health of our employees and the organization. So Amber, I'm wondering if you could speak to some best practices that you'd recommend to help people achieve that work-life balance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think balance is a tricky one, especially in today's world. And depending on the role, I think you can have that balance where you can shut it off and go home and not think about work. But the reality is, right, we are integrated into our work, and it integrates into our lives. And so I actually don't believe in personally work-life balance. I think it works for other people, but for me, I like to integrate it into my life. And I love what I do for work. And I don't want to shut it off when I'm at home. I don't want to shut it off when I'm with my friends. I want to have that conversation and be thinking about things when I'm off. And so I think it depends on the role and the company, definitely. But I think having that flexibility with the team is key, right? So if someone needs to go to a doctor's appointment or they need to go see their kid in a recital in the middle of the day, because you know how daycares and schools love to do that, right? Is we need to let them do those things. And in return, we thank them for their flexibility with us, right? When they need to work, a little bit longer one day to get a project done, or they need to come in a little earlier for a big meeting. I think it's having that continuous appreciation on both sides to make sure that that integration is working for both, and then check in on your people, right? Every quarter we have quarterly conversations with our teams, the people leader and the individual. And you should be asking, how are you doing? How's your capacity? Are you okay? And if they're not, they should feel safe to tell you that. If they don't, that's a whole nother panel and a whole nother conversation to go down on psychological safety, right? But I think you need to really have that open communication with people, because at the end of the day, if you're asking people to work nights and weekends every week, it's simply not sustainable. That hard worker that wants to do great and wants to show you how amazing they are will do that, but they're going to empty their tank doing it. And then when that LinkedIn recruiter messages them and says, "Hey, I've got this great opportunity and it's with this company that has great work-life balance," they're going to be open to having that conversation. And so you always want to protect against that. You want to create an environment where they're saying, "No, thanks. I'm good. I enjoy my balance. I enjoy that work-life integration." So I think having those really honest conversations with the team members and the people leaders are key.
And of course, other panelists, feel free to jump in anytime. And another reminder to our audience to feel free to submit questions, and we'll try to take those live for you. One of the things that I heard a lot in your answer, Amber, was this concept of trust. We have to be able to trust employees to be adults. If they need to go have an appointment, then they're going to get the work done. And it's such a critical piece, I think, in everything that you were saying and in the definitions that we were giving earlier. So when we think about that, fostering a culture of trust and transparency within our organizations, I think probably everybody here has something to say about this. So perhaps just jump in as you feel. But I know maybe Danielle, since we haven't heard from you yet. But in terms of just how your HR department fosters a culture of that trust and transparency, and any best practices you would recommend.
Yeah, I think Amber gave a perfect example of this as how she likes to work. Me, depending on like how the day brings me, sometimes I need to just turn it right off. So it is fostering that trust and that transparency is knowing, creating that environment where, people are okay to share how they work best and trusting that they work best in that way. She also gave the example of if you need to run to school for your child's thing or an appointment, knowing that, okay, if I miss an hour or two, then I'm going to make it up, and having that trust, and especially not even, it extends not just to HR leaders, but also to, managers and other leaders, that when an employee feels like they're trusted, they're going to work even harder because they don't want to make their manager look bad because their manager trusts them. And there's that transparency. So being open with each other. And I think there's a fear right now of people being open because, oh, if I do this, they think I'm not taking my job seriously. And I think it all just comes around conversation. It has to be more, and it's hard because, HR, we feel like we have to have those barriers. We want to know, but we don't want to know on a lot of things. And so I think knowing about who's working for you and your employees will help even more to create more productivity, but also create that trust that companies need now.
Yeah. What about any other panelists want to jump in on this one? I know I agree with Amber. It's an entire other, not only webinar, but probably series of webinars around trust and psychological safety. Anyone who's read Pat Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team knows it's the basis of the pyramid, the foundation upon which everything else is built. So we could certainly do a whole series on that. But I suspect many of you have different initiatives or tips that you could give from your organization on best practices for building that trust and transparency. So anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, this is a little bit new for us at our organization in terms of a software platform that we're going to be using, but the concept's always been there that as people leaders, as managers, as a company, right, we all have goals and metrics that we're working towards throughout the year, no matter your department, to help make the company successful, right? So many times you're can be in a one-on-one, any manager could be in their one-on-one with their employee, and you're focused on what's the next metric, what's the achievement of the goal, how's this project coming along. And so because we're doing that, because we all want the company to be successful, you may forget about that there's a person, behind all of these goals and great achievements, and, they have a life and things like that. And I seriously don't think it's intentional. I think that we're just people that want to be successful, and we want the company to be successful. So we're working and having conversations towards driving for those goals. But it's important to remember to build into those one-on-one conversations a little rapport building, a little conversation, at least every now and then, about that person's career goals, what's going on in their life, to keeping boundaries there, right? Of course. But one thing that this is very new for our organization was we're just rolling out this software, but it's a concept of a check-ins platform where employees have the opportunity outside of a verbal conversation to share thoughts about what's going well for them, what challenges are happening, and that information will be pre-shared before a one-on-one with their manager. So then it becomes a conversation starter for the next one-on-one. And of course, that one-on-one is still going to be about metrics and goals and goal achievement and things like that. But it's also a point to remember that we're humans, and these are a group of humans working together for the goals of the company. So this concept of checking in between one-on-ones is, we believe, going to help us start those or restart those conversations and keep those conversations going, and bringing us all back together on a more human level to talk about ourselves as people and what we're going through in the workplace, and not only the numbers.
I would also add to that, because that's a great point, Pamela, having those frequent touch points with your team, right? And having that be, you don't just start and dive into the agenda, right? Depending on the person, you need to say, how's everything going? Like really building that rapport with them so they have that. And, for us, we take it, I think, a step further, right? In making sure that our values are aligned to how we're interacting. And so one of our values is candid but kind. And for us, it is really important to be honest to build trust. And so in order to build trust, you need to know that what I'm saying to you is real, right? And it's rooted in kindness, and it's rooted in feedback because I care about you as an individual. And so I do think that there's another piece of it where you need to trust that what people are telling you, they're not going to go somewhere else and say it behind your back, right? Like they're actually going to give you that feedback, because how many of us have been in a termination meeting where the individual who's being terminated was completely surprised? Mm-hmm. We've all been there. And as the person that is supporting that people leader who didn't give that feedback, it's really tough to see that happen. And so for me, I really encourage our people leaders to be super candid, give that real-time feedback. It's, Radical Candor is a great book. If anyone wants to kind of look at how to give that proper feedback, you do it rooted in careness, right? In kindness, and because you care about that individual's growth. And I think that helps build trust, because you're helping them grow and you're also building that great relationship with them. So I definitely agree with you. And I think for us, that's a big piece of building trust between team members. And if people who leave, we're surprised when they leave, they talk, right? And so that doesn't build trust between you and the rest of the organization as leaders.
Yeah.
I have another example of that because we've all been on the side too of, hey, I want to write this employee up. And you've heard nothing but great things about this employee for so long. And it's like, well, wait a second. So what's happening now? Like, why is this person? I don't know, but they need to get it right. Well, wait a second. Let's slow down. Let's, humanize it. Like, so what is going on in this person's life that something is happening, and is it something that we can actually help with? I had to bring in a personal situation. I just started my career in HR and I lost my grandmother, and it took my peers of managers, and a couple of them came to me and they're like, what's going on? Like, where's Danielle? Where's like cheery, where's that Danielle? And like, I thought I was holding it together well, but I wasn't. But the fact that I had other managers in the workplace know me well enough and to see that, I am incredibly grateful for them doing that, because that led me into getting help for my grief. But sometimes it takes the people at work to see that because we're with each other so much.
What an opportunity to perfect example of humanizing work, but also notice in that example how the business or the organization does better as a result of humanizing that work and getting, the benefit of, your healing and better work there. So everybody benefits in this incredible relationship. I love that example.
So we got a question that says, an example of a company that's managed to create an awesome culture. I can speak to that. So there's a company that consistently gets on Fortune's top places to work year after year, and they tend to toggle between spot 1 and 3. Some people in the South or the Southwest haven't heard of it. They're big on the Northeast, but it's Wegmans Supermarkets. It's a grocery store chain. They started on the East Coast. They started in Rochester, New York. They've expanded. And I worked there for a period of time, like right out of college. And the reason that they are consistently on Fortune's top places to work is because of the culture and because of how they foster that. And they've done it for decades. And what they do, I mean, it's not overly complicated. I mean, they invest in their people, they provide education, they provide training, they provide opportunities for advancement. All of the leaders within the organization, I mean, they really take the time to get to know people. They help support them. I mean, the organization is a lot of hourly employees, and it's not a very easy job. You're standing on your feet all day. You're a cashier. I mean, it's not glamorous, but the people that work there love it. And for a period of time, they had a wait list for you to even work there. They had so many people that wanted to work there and apply and be a part of that organization that you couldn't even get in. They provide outstanding benefits. They've provided like benefits that were future forward forever. I mean, decades ago, they were providing part-time employees with the same kind of benefits that you would get if you worked in a corporate headquarters and you were a full-time position. They've always offered flexibility around time off and vacation and all of those things. And I think it can be done. You just have to, I mean, really think through and be consistent and do it year after year after year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that intentionality piece in your answer. And it was something that a lot of people asked me about in the, with the pandemic and things moving remotely. How can we continue to do that trust building and humanizing our work? And it really just became a matter of being even more intentional because we're not seeing each other passing down the hallways and that kind of thing. So if organizations are listening to this and thinking, okay, how are we doing? How do we know how we're doing? How do we move the needle on humanizing work? We hear these amazing examples and we want to do more of that. Maybe this is for, I think, Danielle and Pamela or anyone else who wants to jump in. But what would you recommend in terms of collecting feedback or using that feedback from employees to make improvements so that organizations know how they're doing and can move the needle?
I can speak to a couple of things that we're doing and or I've done with organizations in the past. And I don't think the concepts will be terribly earth-shattering, but nice reminders. We get so busy that sometimes we forget the tools that are available to us, even as HR professionals. So we have an annual engagement interview, pulse checks with our teams. Engagement survey, is annual. But one of the things that we implemented at my current company last year is we are calling them engagement interviews, but it's basically the stay interview concept, right? And I have two great people and culture business partners that led that initiative, and it just gave us the chance to dig deeper into the engagement survey results. So we analyzed our engagement survey results and picked out areas that really stood out to us as pain points for our organization, for the people in our organization. And we chose a percentage of the company to have specific calls with to dive a little deeper into those particular pain points that we pulled out from the survey. And once those engagement interviews, stay interviews were done, we outlined some specific action steps and if we hadn't done that, if we hadn't had those interviews, the survey data would have been there, right? But we wouldn't have had the detail that we got out of the interviews. And we had great employees that were willing to open up to us and let us dig a little bit deeper into those results from the survey and help us create action plans. So of course, the next step is once you have all of that information, whether it's from a survey or an interview, you have to do something about that, right? So we communicated back out our intent for action plans, acknowledged to our employees that we heard you and here's what we're doing about it. And we try to do that. We do that communication year over year so that we're sharing back with our employees. Hi there, thank you for the feedback. We heard you, and here's the things that we're implementing because of that, because of your feedback. So, it's a deep process. It's a lengthy process, but has a lot of value and reward to it.
Yeah, that second part's so critical, right? They if they don't see it implemented or heard, why answer the next survey? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, wonderful example. Danielle, anything to add to that?
Surveys are definitely the way I have went in the past, in that because it's hard to talk to everybody in the company. So starting with the survey is really good, and in those interviews to dive deep into it a little bit more. What we also did in every survey I've put out, I have afterwards said, darn, I should have asked that question, or I should have asked this question. So I think it's very important to go to your resources. There's companies that do this for a living, but there's also all of us that have done surveys before. So really get into your peer group and ask, more about like how have you conducted your survey? What questions have you asked? And then one of the things, to bring an example to light, it's hard because how much surveying is too much surveying. So we did like an engagement and benefit one in one. And we really found out, even though as the HR leader, I knew it was an issue, call it our sixth sense, or that, we have a lot of people that come to us for things, that we hear things, but we need the data behind it to actually put it in place for other leadership to buy into it. So what the survey did was tell us, we had a lot of parenting going on with our employees. So like a lot of parents, but on the flip side, we were in that demographic where we had employees that were taking care of their parents or grandparents now. And that was a huge thing that weighed on their minds, because they're wondering, is this parent going to fall at home? Are they, what's going on here? What's going on there? And so we were able to put something in place to help those individuals more, because it was more than I even thought. So that survey really helped with pulling that out and helping us, realize what's going on with our employee population and put something in place to help them. So
yeah, critical to get those insights around what's really going on, because we can design all kinds of initiatives, but if we're not targeting the real problem, then how much help is it really providing, and how much is it humanizing?
Exactly.
It's like, we talked about in the beginning, I think it was Amy, meeting people where they are, And if you don't have that data, then how can you really do that? So wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that example. Well, as we think about collecting data, and several of us have talked about platforms, and of course we're sponsored by an AI-based platform as well. In this age of technology, so this question is for Amy and Amber. How has technology played a role in humanizing work? And then two-part question: what challenges have you encountered?
So I love utilizing technology. I feel like, for our team, technology has been fantastic. It's allowed us to connect further, and especially in an environment where we're now remote a lot of the time, right? And so you don't necessarily see someone face to face as much, but the technology enables that continuous connection. Just for example, we have Slack for our, kind of instant messaging platform. And what has been so great and surprising about it is just it allows us to share celebrations and moments and just a quick little, emoji, a smiley face, something encouraging that really, I think, energizes people throughout the day. And I think technology in a lot of ways has helped us be more efficient, more productive, and just helped us stay really connected, especially at times where we aren't in the same room together. And then same with kind of like the videoing platform. Sometimes we'll do virtual lunches, and it just helps us feel like connected and together. And I think that's amazing. And I think from an AI perspective, I'm really excited about what's coming down the road and how that's going to continue to help and benefit employees and teams, and allow people to learn at their own pace and learn more, and just have more opportunity. So I'm excited for the future of AI and how that's going to continue to help organizations grow and learn and stay connected.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen any downsides? As we talk about humanizing, obviously AI is not the human. So have you seen that sort of flip side of the coin as well?
The biggest challenge that we've experienced is that sometimes, the team can get too reliant and dependent on sending an email, or sending something in a text. Some I think circumstances require a conversation, like a face-to-face, like you pick up the phone, you call them, or you go in person and you have a conversation with them. Not all, but sometimes that requires a conversation. And I think still having those skills to be able to do both, where you have to be able to effectively communicate in a written manner, and you have to be effectively to be able to do things via online platforms, you still also have to have those skills to be able to be in a meeting, to be able to have conversations face to face, to be able to have conversations on a phone. And you have to have practice, and you have to, I think, be able to do both.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Amber, anything to add to that from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would agree with Amy wholeheartedly that I love technology and really excited about how AI and other technology platforms are helping, really get us where we need to go quicker. And for me, a lot of people ask me, "Oh, you're in HR. Doesn't AI scare you?" And my response is no. I think it's great. We can streamline the admin stuff that none of us wants to do, right? And so I think it's an exciting thing. We obviously have to be careful with it from a policy standpoint, making sure people aren't putting proprietary information in ChatGPT, and making sure we're not going into the opposite direction too hard. But for us and Miles Ahead Brands, we've leaned into technology to really be able to get our team members further and have them speak the same language, right? When you think about, we use Lattice, which is an HR platform, and we really use it to kind of do what Amy was saying, to energize throughout the day, to give that feedback to one another, to make sure that our reviews are centralized and all at your fingertips, to make sure that the leaders and the team members are creating really great habits, so that one-on-ones are happening. They have a set agenda. The employee can drive the conversation. All of those things are key and wouldn't be possible without technology. And so for us, it's been really helpful. And I love it. I love technology and seeing what's out there and going to conferences and making sure that I know what's coming down the pipeline so that we can lean into it if it makes sense. I would think that the downside for us is we have very different demographics when it comes to our employee population. So we have everybody from engineers who are coding to truck drivers, right? And so when you think about the ability to use technology is very, very different. And so change management becomes a really crucial part of what we do. And I think what Amy said earlier, right? You got to meet them where they are. So don't ask a truck driver to do, AI on a daily basis. But making sure we're thinking about those things and thinking about our demographic as employees and vendors and clients, and making sure that we're creating a really good user experience that doesn't feel overwhelming, I think has been really key. Another challenge is, and I'm sure all of us have dealt with this, right, is, employees are like, I don't know where to go to. I don't know what tech platform to go to for this, for that. Where's my PTO? Where's this? Where's my client? Where's my CRM? Right. And so I think it's making sure to simplify as much as you can, even in the tech world, right? Simplify as much as you can, even having a one-sheeter that says, here's where you go to for these things, right? Like make it very, very simple and clear to your team so that they aren't feeling the technology exhaustion that comes with, all the apps and all of the things we're asking them to do during the day. So I think that's been another challenge for us that I think we've really tried to centralize those things as much as possible and not just add additional things, try to make those things work together in a really good way.
Yeah.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you so much for those examples. We do have another question from the audience, which is around what employees could look at from a career growth perspective. So as we think about humanizing work, most employees I've met want to grow in their career and develop, and it's a huge part of this discussion in terms of humanizing. So I don't know if maybe this is a question for Amy around how best practices around continuous learning and personal development for your employees, but anyone feel free to jump in as well.
Yeah, thank you. So I think continual learning, I consider myself to be a continual learner. And I think most people, they want to learn, they want to reach goals, they want to develop. And so how we do that, and what I think are some best practices around that, is really setting goals. Having those one-on-one conversations where you really understand, your team, and what are they looking to accomplish? What do they want to do? Where do they want to excel? Where do they want to learn more? What other skill sets do they want to develop? And setting those goals, and then following through, making sure that you're giving the support and the tools and the resources so that your team can do that. And we've created, different approaches where we've offered, support to do things, whether that's in-house learning or external conferences, but a mix sometimes is what ends up happening. But really being able to understand where those skill sets, where are the gaps, where do we need to add more resources, and then setting a plan, following through, and then celebrating successes. Every time somebody learns a new skill set, whether it's taking an online course or attending a seminar or a conference or anything, really celebrating that success, and then giving your team the opportunity to utilize those new skills and add value and be able to flex those muscles.
Perfect. I love it. And I personally have about a million questions, so we could be here all day. But another one that just came, a really good one that just came in from the audience in terms of timeliness of this conversation with the tens of thousands of layoffs that we've seen recently, especially in the tech space. What are your thoughts? Anyone, again, feel free to jump in, around layoffs and transition management. How do we humanize that process? That's a really difficult one. I think it's a very timely question. Anyone have best practices on that or thoughts?
I can go. Unfortunately, I've had to do layoffs before, reductions in force, and even when somebody wasn't right for the role. So like that conversation's always hard, and it's always personal. It is, And that's what we have to remember in our delivery. I think the conversations and the explanations to why the organization, it goes along with that trust and that, transparency. Like, here, you're laid off. Here's your paperwork. That's not going to leave an employee going well. So I've had instances where I think going the route of having that company that helps you with placement. So you're not only having to let go of this person, but you're going to help them, find their next opportunity. So offering those resources, and as HR, we have tons and tons of recruiter partners that help us out. And so I've relied heavily on those guys too. It's like, here, I have this really great person. Unfortunately, I had to let them go, because we've had this many great people. And it's like, when they say you have to let go of two and you have a great team of awesome people, picking that two is really, really difficult. And so if I can in any way get the resources or even help help personally to get this person to their next opportunity, I want to do that. So I've done plenty of that in the past.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'd also add in, Danielle makes a great point about humanizing the conversation during that exit. A lot of companies are getting in trouble right now, and there's some that were big on social media, right, about trying to blend in a layoff and a termination for performance. Those are two different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the more you can separate those out to make it less personal of, attacking someone's performance when it's really a layoff, separating those out is huge when it comes to how that person's going to take that trauma to their next role or to their home life. And so I think being clear there and really leading that exit interview, whether it be for performance or not, for layoff, in a really human way, and making sure that one, the people leader, like the HR person, is not leading that. That should not ever be the case, right? It should be the person that they report into should be leading that meeting, and we should be helping coaching them beforehand, making sure that they're ready for what they can say, what they can't say, all of those things. But making sure too that is really, really important, right? Is if we say it and then we can answer questions for them, I mean, that doesn't feel good to a team member who's exiting. So I think in layoffs, it's a little bit more important for us to kind of be front of mind. But for those performance exits, it's really important for that manager to lead that and push as HR leaders, if you're on this call, like push for that to happen and help them, right? Because they don't know how to do it. They're not as good as us, right? We've done too many to count. We don't want to go back to those days, but help them and coach them into making sure that it is, to Danielle's point, really human of a conversation, and then helping them if we can. Hey, I've got this really great recruiter. Can I connect you with them? And making sure that, you can do that, even if you can't do the transition services, which is always the best way to go. But if you can't from a cost perspective, like at least try to help them in little ways, either it be you or the hiring leader, to get them to their next great role. And just know that, communicate to them that, hey, this is temporary pain. And you're going to look back a year from now and you're going to be thanking the stars that this meeting happened. And I'm going to help you get to that point. I think that's an important message to have in those conversations too.
Yeah. Really, really well said. I wrote, there's a line in my book that says, "Not getting what I thought I wanted was arguably one of the best things that ever happened to me." And so we never know where that's going to take them to a better situation. And in your entire answer, I just heard again this transparency and the candor, and people deserve to know, what's going on, not only at the time, but throughout their employment. And so if we have those continual conversations, then, we build that trust, and it's all kind of interconnected that way. Amazing.
Great.
Yeah. Didn't want to cut anybody off. Any other comments on that particular? That's a heavy, really recent one. Okay. So we do have one more question from the audience around this concept of resilience. Any tips or pointers specifically for leadership This could be in the context of the current economic situation or generally. Leadership is multifaceted and lots of challenges, of course. So anyone have thoughts on resilience for the leaders within your organization and how our function can help foster that?
Yeah. A concept or a phrase that I use a lot with our people leaders, whether we're in a training format or just a one-on-one conversation, is that my goal is that for our people and culture team is we're here as thought partners. And I think that's a big way that we can help. We're not only here as an HR function to, if there's a performance issue, it doesn't always have to be that there's an issue with an employee or concept or performance going the way they don't want it to or something like that. But I am a big believer in the HR team being a thought partner. So, leaders, just like we've talked about this whole time, right? Leaders are people too. They're humans. They have a team to run. They have their own personal life. They have their individual goals, most likely to meet if they're a producing manager and whatnot, depending on the org of the company. But I think a big piece of what us as HR leaders can provide is to be a thought partner to our safe space, to our leaders to bounce ideas off, to just talk things through. Maybe there is an issue going on, but maybe there's not an issue going on, or maybe there's anticipation of something coming up. But I think that's a great way. It's a pretty simple way, but I think messaging that out there is a big piece of that. Messaging that to your organization that your people and culture team, your HR team is here as a thought partner to you, not just when something is maybe going wrong or maybe not going the way that you want it to. But we can be proactive in partnering. And I think that would help with the resiliency of any leader to know that they've got partners with them to talk through things.
Yeah.
Pam, I agree with you. And I just add, we've got to do better as far as the brand of HR, right? And throughout my career, it's been a challenge because that you are the people saying, no, don't do this. Let's talk about the termination meeting. Let's do this and that. Right. And, I got really good feedback this year from my boss, the president of the company, where he said, we need to have you rebranded, not the people team, but you, that when you walk in a room or you call someone, they don't think they're getting fired. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great feedback because that should not be my reputation. And so I've done, really intentional kind of touch points with those leaders. There's nothing wrong. I just want to see how things are going. How can I help you? And really being that business partner to them, right? To understand what's keeping you up at night. And we're doing a good job with rebranding. Like a lot of people don't have HR in their titles anymore. Thank goodness. We don't say HR, it's a bad word at Miles Ahead Brands. We say the people team. But it's important for us to really use the marketing approach in how are we being branded to the organization as the people team? Is it to be thought leaders? Is it to have that safe space that you can come to? Or is it, oh, I need to do documentation. I need to check these boxes with them. And so I think it's a daily struggle and there's no perfect formula, but it is something, Pamela, I agree. It's we're getting better at it. We still have some work to do.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add a little bit to that too. Agreed with both what Pamela and Amber say. Also, too, one of my big goals, because I transitioned from HR to my role now in employer benefits, because I want to be that sounding board to other HR people. I know what they're going through. And guess what? It's just not employee benefits. There's so much more to it. And I think, and also to relay, Amber is a close friend of mine. Like we get together regularly to bounce things off of each other, to just basically unwind and unload and because we know what each other is going through. So I think really finding those peers, whether in your organization or outside of your organization, really helps with that resiliency, because knowing that you're not alone is huge. And that's a big part of, being a human. We're all humans. We're not alone in this. There's plenty of people going through what you're going through. So I think reaching out to those people has been a huge thing in my life. So
Agree, Danielle.
Yeah, there's some making me think of there's some research around using strengths every day at work being, I believe it was from the Gallup organization, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, in terms of building resilience by being able to use those strengths every day. But if we don't know what they are, then that's very difficult to do. And so I love this idea of HR being a thought partner to help us really understand ourselves, whether it's through, I know several of us have different personality assessments of choice or feedback 360s, a coach, whatever, of course I'm biased toward coaching, but whatever that is to help us really understand what really lights us up and what we're best at, that we can build that resilience and use our best gifts as we're in the workplace. So again, I could jam on that all day, but what I'd love to do, I think, this panel has such great advice. I'd love to just do a little bit of a round robin as we think about closing out our discussion today around if someone in the audience is sitting there thinking, wow, I'm so inspired by these examples that you've given, these stories, and I want to join the mission, what advice would you give to, whether it's HR leaders or others within the organization? Anyone can promote humanizing the workplace. So what advice would you give, or what final kind of tip would you impart to our audience as far as how they can prioritize humanizing work within their organizations? And I think for this one, I'd love to start with Danielle.
I think just like what Amber said with like rebranding, HR and doing that, like you have to let people know you're human. Now there's different ways of doing that, obviously, but we're all in the same boat. We are also employees. So I think getting to the level with everybody where you can be, transparent and open. That's what I've noticed the most of is once I'm opened up to somebody, especially employees, when they come to me for something, if I share a story about myself or admit my own flaws or mistakes, they see me as human and they are more free to talk to, what's bothering them or how they think they can improve and how we can improve as a company. So I think really being human back is showing people that you are human and we do make mistakes and we have the same feelings they have too, and it's not an us and they, it's like we're one too. So
That's right. And I hear leadership in that, right? Going first, saying, you know what, I don't know, I need help too. Yeah, that's beautiful. Let's see. What about Pamela? What advice would you give HR leaders who want to join the mission and prioritize humanizing work?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Danielle, and I think I'll go back and wrap up where I started, which is listening, right? Listen, not just to listen, but listen so that our teams and people know that they're heard, which is also part of communicating back what they've said to us, communicating back what we've learned from them. So listening would be my first advice. Be curious, ask questions and then listen to those responses. Be vulnerable was one of the things, kind of like what Danielle said, that first came to my mind. Be human and be vulnerable. Not one human on this earth knows everything about everything, right? So it's okay to, and I would say encourage to be curious, check out what's out there, continually learn, go to conferences and workshops, learn about the technology, bring that back to your organization, learn about other best practices that other organizations, connect with other people, other leaders and other organizations, and bring back best practices, pilot it, try it out. May not be for your organization, but I think that if we aren't curious and we don't try out new best practices or ideas, that we'll get stagnant, right? And I don't think that's anywhere that anybody wants to be. So listening, being curious, learning, and be vulnerable are my advice.
Those are things anybody in the entire organization can do, right? I mean,
Yep.
So important. It's not, just the HR function that can really take up this mission. Amber, anything to add to that? I'd love to hear if you can impart one word of wisdom or phrase, I suppose, to our audience. What would you leave the audience with?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say if you're thinking about where to start and how to do these things, I think you first have to assess where you're at and where your company is. This all starts from the top. And so I've worked in organizations that the top believes in this, and I've worked in organizations that the top doesn't. And I don't stay at the organizations where the top doesn't. And I think you need to be honest with yourself. I'm not saying jump ship, but be honest with what you can implement and get the buy-in from the top first. You can sell that in many ways, right, with the data, but I think that's important. And then I think, for me and how I live my life, I have it on my refrigerator. I have it's personal mantra that I live by every day is kick ass and be kind. And for me, like that's what I want to do. I want to be able to do great things and push things forward and do awesome in my work, in my career, in my home life, but with kindness every single day. And I think you just have to try to find that balance as much as you can.
Perfect. I need one of those magnets. And Amy, last but not least, what words of wisdom would you impart on our audience today?
Yes, hopefully I'm not freezing up. So I echo everything that everybody said. And I would just say, you have to be the change that you want to see and be the change that you want to make. And it starts with you. And then if you can be the model for that, people will follow.
Well, if that's not the perfect note to end on, I don't know what is. So what a perfect charge for all of us to join in this mission, regardless of your function, your role, your department. Everybody can be part of this. So, on behalf of everyone, I'd love to personally thank our panelists. It's been absolutely wonderful having you, and I want to thank you for your time and your insights. The audience, of course, is welcome to connect with any of us here on LinkedIn, and remember to check out Dextego's platform for real-time AI insights to develop and retain your talent. And with that, thank you all for your time and have a wonderful rest